For those that don't know, Bandcamp, we had 3 songs on Bandcamp. Those 3 songs charted on Billboard. 3 for 3, 100%, all out of the ballpark. That's not common for musicians. Bandcamp abruptly deleted our account, as well as 5 Times August, Bryson Gray, and a few others. I think Bryson Gray. I know 5 Times August.
In the same time period?
I don't know exactly when. Mm-hmm. We've received no notice. We have no idea what's going on. They've refused any and all communication. Now, there are several concerns that I have. 1, do the people who've purchased the song have access to the song? If not, well, that's a serious infringement on the arrangement I have and they have with their customers. Some people have said they still have access to the song, which brings me to the next problem, copyright infringement. They have terminated our working relationship and my access to revenue for those songs, but they're still distributing that song? Whoa, we got a problem here. They have my song on their platform that they are distributing without my control or access or say. Well, that can't work, can it? I mean, they're playing my music. I say copyright infringement. And also another major component, I don't know if they're holding money of mine because they have no communication with me. Considering we were doing sales on the platform up until they just abruptly banned us, I can only assume they have my money until they can release a report and at least email us and say, here's what happened. Here's our breakdown. They haven't done it. So I think they've also violated the rights of the customers. When people were buying a song on Bandcamp, they weren't just getting access to that song. They were getting access to a community around my music. None of our songs broke any rules. None of our songs made direct references. One song was a love song. One song was generic anti-establishment with no references to any person, no hate speech, nothing like that. And one song was a story about a fictional revolution that never mentioned anything violent. And it talked about tearing down statues. That's all. They banned us without notice. So I intend to pursue litigation against them. So we can, first of all, I need to know if they have my money. And I'm assuming they do because I think these people are acting maliciously. I need to know we have no access to any of our data. We have no access to our customers. I don't even know if the person emailing me asking for a refund is a legitimate person because they've taken all of that away from us and given us no access.
What is the legal strategy with these companies just providing zero notice, or zero communication? Is that calculated?
And not just that. I don't have access to the information about who has my music. So I have customers that currently have a license to my song. I don't know who they are, where they are. I don't know what they've spent. I don't know if they have my money. A lack of access to this information puts me in a very difficult position business-wise in dealing with my copyright rights and my obligations to my customers and those holding licenses.
This is a problem that confronts so many creators of content. And let's face it, no one's going to Bandcamp or Twitter or Facebook or any of these platforms just because the platforms are interesting. They're going there to see content. They're going there and these platforms make money because people create content and they put it on and they host it. The problems with respect to this industry, and I was in a debate earlier this week, and I'll reiterate what I said there about this at UNC Law School, is you could not run businesses in any other industry that I'm aware of where you engage in this kind of bait and switch behavior where, let's just use Twitter because it's an example that I'm most, intimately familiar with, where you say, for example, we're the free speech wing of the free speech party. When Vijaya Gadde says in a blog post in July of 2018, we do not shadow ban. We do not discriminate on the basis of political ideology or viewpoint. When you have Jack Dorsey the following month reiterate the same thing on Sean Hannity's show to a national audience. And yet, as the Twitter files have shown, that's exactly what they were engaging in.
I have a question. If you are a pizza restaurant, can you arbitrarily deny service to anyone for any reason?
I think the answer to that would be no. Those are places of public accommodation. And they go ahead.
Well, the reason I asked, and to clarify, a lot of businesses say we reserve the right to refuse service to anyone. But I have to wonder if a public accommodation opened its doors to the public and says anyone is welcome to come in. You come in, you order a piece of pizza, you quietly sit down, and then they walk up to you and say, you get out right now. Is that something a public accommodation can just do?
No, I
think they might be able to do it.
They could do it, and they'd be at litigation risk. I mean, if they came up to you, particularly if you're a member of a protected class, you might have a claim for race, sex, or other form of protected class discrimination.
All right. Well, let's say a mixed race person comes and sits down at a pizza restaurant, says nothing, insults no one, eats pizza, and then the white owners walk up and say, "You're not welcome to be here. Get out."
Then I think that person would have potentially a viable claim for racial discrimination.
So it sounds like Bandcamp banned me for being a mixed race person.
Well, they're going to say, right? They're going to say that they're not a place of public accommodation. The platforms, and I think there have been efforts to try to loop the platforms in as places of accommodation. But let's get. I mean, but they're going to say, they're also going to say, is Section 230 trumps any right?
No, please. Okay, absolutely. I absolutely do think that one of the components of the removal was my mixed race status. I mean, the people who put out we watched one of these videos. It's all white people. It's clearly all white. They clearly have an issue with the fact because I mean these people. Derek Bell, for instance, has advocated for segregation. Well, mixed race people are clearly at odds with that ideology. So Derek Bell, the critical race theorist, argues that black people were better off with their own economy, which is wrong in my opinion. The critical race theory idea is that before the end of segregation, black people made more money, they provided service for themselves. He thinks that schools should remain segregated, and these people likely share these views. Now, they've said nothing to me, but I think that actually makes sense as to why they actually removed my account. I can't speak for anybody else. But here I am, breaking no rules, minding my own business, just some mixed race dude making music, and they delete my account. I think there's a racial component to this, and if they want to argue that they have a Section 230 right to be racist, I would love for them to tell a court and the world that, in fact, it doesn't matter whether or not we're allowed to be. I'll say okay to that, fine, I guess. If the law allows them to ban me for being mixed race, then I would love for everyone to know that.
That was actually a question I believe that the court posed to Twitter during our hearing,
and
Berenson versus Twitter. Could you discriminate? Could you kick somebody off on the basis of race? And I don't. There wasn't a clear answer from Twitter in that regard.
Bryson Gray's a black man. They banned him. I think we're now seeing a pattern of behavior.
Yeah, I don't know without looking at all the facts. But again, I mean,
they're not going to argue the black man is racist, right? There's no reason to have banned him.
But setting the racial component to the side, just from a pure contract theory perspective, the hypothetical that you present, right? You come in, you're eating your pizza. You've relied on a public representation, a sign on the front of the door that says all are welcome here, right? You walk in, you're enjoying your slice, but mid-bite, you're told to get out. That is there a contract problem there? Yeah, maybe.
I would say so. I think a better example would be the pizza argument has a metaphor, has an issue in the scale of monetary value involved. So with this Bandcamp thing, we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars and tens of thousands of customers. So this would be more like I go to a mall and I spend thousands of dollars renting out a space, creating a pizza shop, having a bunch of customers come in, and then one day abruptly, the owner of the mall pulls down the gate, locks it shut, and says, "Get the fuck out." And I'm like, for what? And then he has security escort out of the building. I have no access to any of my assets. I have no access to, I don't know who's got my pizza. I don't know.
What does it say when you try to log in?
Nothing. It says this account doesn't exist.
Okay. So what is this strategy
So
I'm
this
trying
would-
to get at of of nothing, no communication, no reason. Like, is that has to be an intention? Are they
For
trying
all I
not to
know,
have
they're
a
giving
paper
my
trail?
song away for free now.
But like, is it intentionally trying to limit communication because that reduces their exposure in a certain way?
Most companies are going to say a minimal amount, right? I mean,
Sure.
right. I mean, it's just in their.
But I think
it's just
that
in
actually,
their interest to do that.
But it seems like sometimes Twitter will ban people, or old Twitter would ban people just out of nowhere and like it's gone. Versus there actually being a strike come through an email. Same with YouTube. Like sometimes people it's just gone. Versus other times.
And then they'll go ahead.
I think the lack of information makes them more at fault, because the mall analogy makes more sense. I don't know where my assets are. I don't know who they've distributed them to. They do not have the copyright on this music to give it to people I am not aware of. We track who has a license to my intellectual property. They have severed that, and for all I know, they're withholding my money. They've not told us. And they're withholding our information as to who they have given this music to. There may be people who do not have a right to have that song. They're distributing it. This is copyright infringement. They're hosting my song on their platform without my consent. So we got a big problem here.
And is your name still is your name
Yes.
Tim Pool still okay?
So if you go to timcast.bandcamp, it just says let's say like Timcast Chicago or something. But people have told me that when they go into their account, they can see the song, which means they have my copyrighted information on their platform without my consent.
And they're trading on your name.
Yes, absolutely. They're monetizing that. So if they wanted to ban it outright, they'd have to eliminate that content from the platform. The reason they didn't, in my opinion, because then they would have tens of thousands of arbitration and litigation claims against those who use the platform in the first place. They can't be allowed to do this. This is a clear violation of all of the rights of all parties involved.
Well, and look, and again, unfortunately, it's not an isolated case. I mean, these companies are very powerful, and again, I mean, the general principles that would apply to businesses, and I represent men and women across the country who have to deal with legal issues and claims against their businesses that are in many ways frivolous or without foundation, and yet you've got the reliance interest that you're talking about here, and the investment that you've made in building these brands and others have made on these platforms, having the rug unceremoniously pulled out from under them, in some cases with no explanation whatsoever.
We have tremendous monetary damages in this regard. Tremendous.
Well, and the other thing, I'm glad you brought that up. The other thing that you'll see is these platforms with their one-sided terms of service will say you're limited. For example, I believe Twitter's terms of service still limit damages to $200 on the basis of any legal claim that you could.
But that can't
make.
stand.
And that would be an argument. That you can't. That's unconscionable and should be invalid.
And there have been so many people. People need to understand this about law. For some reason, I think a lot of people think that the law, it's like the judge looks at a piece of paper and goes, "Whoa, this piece of paper says $200. Sorry." The judge can be like, "Not only am I going to award you $200,000, bailiff, arrest the defendant." And they're like, "What?" The judge can do it. The judge can be like, "I'm going to be imposing a daily fine of X amount of dollars on you," and you're like, "How can the judges have the My point is more so that's not necessarily going to happen. It's that judges are human beings with a lot of discretionary power.